Ted Selogie is the general manager of JW Marriott Hotel in Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. He's a 26-year Marriott veteran, two-time award winner for North American Lodging Awards, including the Leadership Excellence Award for the Central Region, one of Marriott's highest awards, and for sales and marketing achievement and operational excellence. He was also named General Manager of the Year for New Orleans in 2010 by Ware magazine. He joined Marriott International as a captain and assistant banquet maitre d' of the Chicago Marriott downtown. He advanced through the ranks, held various catering, food, and beverage marketing positions in hotels throughout Illinois and Iowa. And in 1995, he was named Director of Marketing in the Marriott Hotel in Illinois, later appointed as Assistant General Manager of the Renaissance Cleveland Hotel at Public Square. In 1999, he was named General Manager of the Chicago Downtown Courtyard, which he held 2 years before his appointment as Area General Manager of the Oak Brook and Southwest Cluster in Illinois. He's an active member in his community, which is pretty impressive. He works with various organizations, including Habitat for Humanity, Jones House for Battered Women, Proviso East Public Schools, Homes for Children with Down Syndrome, just to name a few. For the past 20 years, he has served as an instructor for Marriott Sales and Catering Schools, and he's a board member of the New Orleans Food and Wine Experience, and Marriott's Business Council Committee Chairman for DonorsChoose.org, which is a Spirit to Serve New Orleans is a slogan, and it's a service project that will help fund teacher projects for the upcoming school year. He was president for the Greater New Orleans Hotel and Lodging Association in 2009, and currently committee chairman for government affairs at GNOHLA and the Louisiana Hotel and Lodging Association. He studied industrial engineering and marketing at the University of Illinois. He is a triathlete.
It's scary, isn't it?
An avid sailor, 7th in penguin class for two-man sailing World Open, and enjoys playing the trumpet. He currently resides in New Orleans and has a 15-year-old son named Zachary. So let's welcome our guest, Ted.
Thank you.
What I like about this is our first general manager we've had in this class history. I learned a lot since having a business in two businesses in hotels, and I think that could be a lot to be learned about running a household, running a neighborhood, even running a city or a country from a hotel general manager, because a hotel never closes. And everything people do on the street, everything people do in their houses, they do in hotels. The only difference is that the hotel has to deliver on an expectation that the experience is still going to be very high. And Ted, leading a flagship hotel brand like JW, he has very high expectations, and I've gained a tremendous amount of respect for him even before we started working together. So I think there's a lot of value that he can bring to the class discussion today. And I'd like to kind of start with, UNO is, and we actually had Mark Romney not long ago, he's a product of the hospitality tourism school here at UNO. Why did you choose hospitality and why hotels?
Well, it's a long, sordid story. Actually, when I was a little boy, my father was an immigrant from Transylvania, next to Austria. And it was during Austrian occupation, moved here with his father. And as an immigrant, by Neck, Transylvania. And he came in through Ellis Island with his dad, and they got shipped to Chicago, which a lot of Eastern Europeans did. Anyway, long story short, he put himself through Northwestern Night School at Harvard to get his MBA. I was an industrialist in the city, working for a guy named Chuck Percy. I don't know if you know who he was, but a ranking senator for Illinois in the U.S. Senate. And when my dad would entertain, we would go downtown to downtown Chicago. We lived in a suburb. Go downtown a lot. We'd walk into the Palmer House Hilton Hotel, which is about a 1,000-room hotel. And I remember it was a little boy from about 5 to about 9 years old, walking into this incredible structure with frescoes painted on the ceiling and Italian marble sculpture water fountain in the lobby, and tugging on my dad's coattails saying, "Dad, I want to be in the hotel business." And boy, it was as if I had told him I wanted to run a 7-Eleven. Because he was all about numbers and all about math. And when I was 16, I had my first hotel job at a Hilton hotel, opened a Hilton in the North Shore of Chicago, in a job which was called bar back. I was changing beer kegs and running ice and helping the bartenders out, and I was hooked. That was my first job. I'm really lucky. I know a lot of times through your college years, people have a tendency to change career paths 7 to 9 different times. And I knew at 16 exactly what I wanted to do for a living for the rest of my life. So I've been doing that ever since. I was with Hilton for about a dozen years prior to Marriott. But I've never wanted to do anything else. It's the coolest job.
What do you think is the most, I guess, commonly misunderstood thing about the hotel hospitality business, we would call it? So someone joins in, no matter what job it is, say if you're working in marketing, say if you're working in a restaurant, if you're working front desk, or you're working behind the scenes, what do you think is one of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of the hotel lifestyle?
I'd say I probably have 2 statements along that line. One is about letting your guard down. And, you know, my public life and my personal life, if you need to use the restroom, you're welcome to leave. Often I think what gets misunderstood because people are so familial and friendly with what happens in a hotel environment that they consider it home after they're there for a little while. And the staff really doesn't ever have that opportunity, and sometimes it happens where they have a tendency to engage with customers and get more friendlier or more familiar than they probably ought to based on what the representations are of the brand. That's probably the most common mistake and the most misunderstood about why people get in the hotel business. There was a show, I'd say probably when I was in my 30s, called Hotel. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was a series show. It had beautiful people on it. Everybody was beautiful. And the life was all about more or less like Peyton Place. It was one soap opera event after the next soap opera event. The lifestyle was very flamboyant, and it added a lot of display of color and excitement and inspiration. And there's a lot of nuts and bolts about what I do for a living. I have to tell you, in my DNA is this attitude of servitude, and probably inherent from my father. He understood people. But it's about serving and about being pleased about serving. And we try to inspire that within the staff in the hotel, and sometimes that's a misunderstood character about what the work looks like. You know, when I try to hire people into our business, I try to appeal to them that it's just not about a job, it's about an adventure. And if you tell someone that loves what they do, they never believe that what they're doing, if they're loving what they do, they never believe they work a day in their life. And so we try to inspire that with people that come on board for a career perspective from our company. We've got about 4,000 hotels in our system right now. We're the largest in the globe. And it's fun finding people that really got that kind of keen eye about servitude and about understanding different levels of business within the industry itself.
Give me the prototype. Give me the person you would select to spend a career in hospitality.
Not afraid of long hours. Dedicated, passionate. One of the other things that we look for in individuals, my resume is peppered with some great professional experiences, but more importantly to me are the community-related experiences. When running a business that's within a community, Marriott, and I would believe all brands feel the same way, that there's this attitude about servitude to the community because we pay a lot of tax dollars, but we also supply enough money for people to eat and pay their rent, and we've got a responsibility to help protect them and serve them with efforts and initiatives within the city. So we look for people that are very community-minded, that have an interest in helping thy fellow man, and that understand that you can turn the other cheek if you need to, but always uphold the level of professionalism. So that probably sums it up.
Considering, being in the part of the business you're in, you quickly come into a community and you're running a large portion of it. You're running a system that's open every day. You're working with,
really cool people.
Cool people. But, and there's shifts, right? And one of the things that really impressed me about Ted is Ted actually interviews every person that's hired in a hotel personally himself. And how many employees is that?
A couple hundred.
So you have to imagine taking that kind of time to do that kind of a thing, knowing everybody personally working in a hotel.
Yes.
But coming into a town, say Chicago's like this, New Orleans like that, where there's a lot of deep roots,
Right.
there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of expectations and ideas that already exist, and you kind of just have to be plugged in. Talk about leadership, leading a group of people when you're kind of the outside and you have to come in and run this thing that requires you to quickly become the inside.
Sure. Quite frankly, that's one of the things I love about the hotel industry, particularly with a brand that's got such substantial brands like Marriott does. We've got well over 10 different brands that we drive process-wise. Courtyard hotels, there's about 700, about 250 full-service hotels. And right now, there's a plan that will have as many JW brand hotels in the world, more than we have Ritz-Carltons, which we own Ritz-Carlton too. I don't know if you know that or not, but that's another one of our brands. The cool thing about moving around has been this development of partnership and understanding and getting more involved in family. One of the reasons why I interview everybody in the hotel is I just don't want people that want to come work for me that just need, that you need a job is one thing. That you want to be there is a completely different set of circumstances. So I try to find out not only the business reasons why someone would be interested in the work, but find out more about who they are. I ask questions about their family, if they have kids, if they don't have kids, what their interests are, what their long-term plans are, because even you all need to have a long-term plan. And even if that means the plan changes every couple of years, you got to have a plan, because how do you get to something if you don't start working on what the plan is? You want to keep with the end in mind, always first and foremost, and then back off of that to figure out what the plan looks like and the steps you take. So the partnership part comes into play where you really have to have innate understanding about humankind and a passion for people. And I talk funny. I talk more like a Chicago than a New Orleanian. But I think when you get an opportunity to sit down and feel someone's heart and they're willing to share with you and trust you to that degree, that you really get to learn something spectacular about where you're living, not only from an environment standpoint, but more about the people. Because my job really is only broken into 3 component parts, and it's people, product, and performance. And everything's lumped into one of those 3 categories. And the people piece for us with Marriott is our primary focus to make sure we've got right people in the jobs.
You manage a staff that seems like to me has also got smaller since the time I've known you to some extent, but your performance continues to go up. And I got an opportunity to see a little bit of how you do that, because you're maniacal and crazy. And also this board that you have in this meeting room, where you literally have everything written down from what the accomplishments were from last year.
Yeah.
It seems like to me you get a tremendous amount of people to take personal interest in their job, and it seems like everybody's working extremely long hours and taking it personal. How do you get people to take something personal? It's one of the things I find challenging sometimes, even with students or with musicians. How do you get people to take something personal, especially something that can be impersonal, like working in a hotel?
First and foremost, because I think you have a great opportunity here to take a class from who's one of my local heroes. And I would say the passion that Irvin has is a passion that I certainly have on a same parallel in a very different business about what I do and what he does. And looking for that passion within people, I think, is the primary piece. But then once they're on board, how to keep them interested and motivated really comes down to your ability to have them help understand what the why is. I'm not a yelling person. I'm a firm person. I also set very high expectations for my staff. I don't take a lot of guff for nonsense. I don't expect my staff to do anything except really try to help serve people, and that's not to say that we have to breach any ethical gap. There's never a question about that. But it is about what serving the guest means and what the JW brand experience and how we communicate that. So I spend a lot of time with my staff, besides the interviewing piece, which no one gets hired without having an interview with me as kind of the final interviewer. There's 2 or 3 levels that managers have to go through to hire an hourly associate in the hotel. with the intent that we always want to hire someone that we think has a capability to grow within the organization, because we're still in the growth mode. We have 4,000 hotels. Mark my words, by the time I retire, we'll have 7,000 hotels. And it's that fact that keeps me aligned with making sure that I find people like you, that may be interested in the hotel business for a long period of time. So you want to find the right job that fits to who that person is, but set a high expectation not only for yourself and uphold what those expectations are, but also expect to uphold those expectations in the people that work for you. And that often is the magic. It's also about having a good listening ear, so that you're not deaf or not tuned in to what issues that they run into. I've been doing this a long time, about 30 some odd years. I won't say how long that is, but a long time. And I would say one thing makes me good at my job, and I'm really good at my job, I have to be frank about that, is that I really have an understanding about how to listen more than I do about how to talk, because I think that that's a skill that often gets misrepresented. And if you're a good listener, you can really pick up more than if you're a really great talker, quite frankly. So I don't know if that answered that question sort of for you.
I think it kind of did. Back to hotels.
Okay. You can talk about anything if you want.
Tell us about JW, the type of jobs that you have available, the type of people you're looking for, and what the opportunities can be if you come work in a hotel. I have friends of mine, I tell all the time, I think the hospitality industry is something that they should get into, that they can grow themselves, careers, because of what I like is the ongoing education opportunities, the insurance, the benefits, a lot of things that it's provide. And I get a lot of condescension from a lot of people who I've grown up with, some who could actually use some jobs about working in a hotel.
It's interesting you say that, because I think well, when I started in the hotel business, I was in high school, and then kept up the work all the way through my college years. And there's a lot of people that are modest college students. The challenge is with the college education, unless you find the thing that inspires you, that makes you go, that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, that makes you live and breathe every minute of what you're doing every single day, you're doing the wrong thing. I mean, and that if you're an average student, you can turn into an A+ student, because you've got this tremendous focus over what you find is interesting. The thing I love about the hotel business is that it's got such a diversity of jobs, all under one kind of common belief about the servitude piece and level of excellence and the expectation that people excel and exceed in what they do versus just live their day out like it's a job. I mean, this isn't Kmart, it's not Walmart, it's not Lowe's. It's, in my hotel, you get a job in the JW. We have 13 brands in Orleans Parish. There are 13 different hotels in Orleans Parish. We operate 22% of all the inventory within the city. So when I want to go see Mitch lets me in, because we represent a big share of revenue taxes, but also employment within the city. And I would say, when you're thinking about what kind of work to look at, we provide such a diverse opportunity, from if you're a food and wine lover, like the young lady in the back, where you have an interest in culinary or in how wine is made, you can develop that from a career perspective. If you're a finance person, but you kind of like what the idea is about the hustle bustle in the hotel business, you can get a job in accounting. We've got 4 levels of accounting that runs from one hotel to dual hotels, to 4 hotels, to an area, to a region, to a really big region, under our general auspices that starts with Louisiana, rolls into Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida. We're also part of a larger region called the Southern Region for Marriott hotels. It's divided into 3 component parts. But the Southern Region really is these Gulf states, and then 27 countries through Central South America, all the way down to the Tierra del Fuego, all the way down to Argentina. So I decided I wanted to move. I speak Spanish. I learned it when I was in school, starting in about the 4th grade. I can go down to Buenos Aires if I want. I could move to Brazil if I want. So this wanderlust thing, I think, is really kind of a cool part of it. And I would swear I'm probably more gypsy, like my father may have been when he was a kid. But there's this diversity of the different types of work. You can be in sales and marketing. You can be in a restaurant. You can be, if you like the restaurant business, you can work at the desk, which is really just guest experience management over inventory. You can be in the valet. And the cool thing is about my business is that you don't have to start at the top of the org chart. You don't have to start at a job that pays $80,000 to $150,000 a year, and I can tell you the salaries go double to that size, even in this market. You start as a waiter, you start as a valet person. As long as you have a good attitude, and you show up for work, and you're good to people, and you try to excel every single day with what you're doing, and you're recognized by customers, you'll get promoted, guaranteed. So lots of opportunity. There could be a job for each one of you in here in the hotel business. And it's not just us. There's Hilton's got great representation here. Starwood, which owns Sheridan W, two really great brands. They were going to build an Indigo hotel in town here, and that got kiboshed. But we've got a lot of brands. Hyatt just opened up their big Regency hotel over by the Superdome. They also are franchising the Old Chateau Bourbon on Canal Street, and they picked up a select service hotel, which was a nooning hotel over by the convention center. It's going to be called a Hyatt Loft, and they've got these tiers, much like Marriott has. They've got 3, though we've got 13. So that's just kind of how it works. So lots of opportunities. So the person we always would end up looking for in our industry would be somebody that's got a passion for people, that really kind of wants to be involved, and an innate understanding of what servitude is. But any kind of work that you like, there's an application in the hotel business. Because we really, like Erwin had said, we're open 24 hours a day. It's not 9 to 5 work. My job, he'll tell you, sometimes it's more like being a musician, because I'll be in the nightclub with Irvin until midnight or 12:30, and then I'm in at 7 o'clock for a board meeting in the morning, or I'm in Baton Rouge because I'm vice president for the Louisiana Hotel Association, or I'm attending a no-fee event, the New Orleans Wine and Food Experience, with her for a board of directors meeting that we have, because that's a big weekend in the city. So there's just a lot to do. And if you have an interest, he knows where I live. So. With the brand, we've got 19 JWs in the nation, 27 of them outside of the United States, and we're going to have 80 by 2013. There's 40 hotels that are currently in development. JW brand, we think it's a really burgeoning brand. Can I use a piece of chalk? Of course. Talking about the JW. So from a guest stay perspective, we kind of look at these 2 access points, which will kind of help you. Don't take a note. And I apologize for my lousy handwriting. That there's a balance between these 2 pieces about what brand means to any organization in the hotel industry, and that's all I'm going to speak about. This has application to anything that you're working on, but quite frankly, we see where people want to stay in a balance somehow, modestly in comparative of a luxury stay and what they can afford, based on what that means, and on a development of some sort of lifestyle means. So Courtyard Hotel, which is a select service hotel, there's no doorman. You get greeted very friendly when you come in, but you're carrying your own bags. There's a modest breakfast in the morning. There's really no dinner option. There's no culinary genius. There's no great wine list. But it's for somebody that wants a very specific stay, that doesn't want to spend a tremendous amount of money, or if they're traveling that way with family. And their luxury component might be here. If we were looking at what these balance looks like with all of our brands, Ritz-Carlton would be right here. This would be the Ritz. Marriott typically would be right here. And then over here on this side would be Renaissance hotels. You guys know Renaissance? You know those hotels? There's about 150 of them. Little chain. So Renaissance hotels. So if you know where the Ritz-Carlton is downtown. So people expect a certain level of luxury. The amount of people that work in the building may be 2 times the normal ratio, much like the Windsor Court would be almost considered a Ritz-Carlton level of service. But you say Windsor Court to somebody that you stayed there, you had your wedding there, it's an ooh, right? Ritz-Carlton's the same way. We see that as pretty much strict on the luxury side of things. When we talk about Renaissance hotels, this got developed because your age up to about 38 years old, we realized that people really want to experience life through their work. So we developed a brand that we felt really understood lifestyle. So if you looked at what these 2 balances are, from a luxury standpoint, this might be, well, this would be Ritz-Carlton, and Renaissance hotels would be over here. When they started developing JW hotels, the thought was that it was going to be a premium hotel, and the first one was built in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue. As a testament to Bill Marriott's dad, who's still living, he's our chairman of the board, that it would be slightly nicer than the Marriott Hotel, be a little more luxurious, And there'd be some components of lifestyle around food, about a little more articulated menu in the restaurant, which means a little higher average check or a little nicer place to eat than you'd find at a normal Marriott hotel. Everybody following me so far? Okay, so what we found was JW doesn't sit there. Where JW sits is right here. That there's a degree of luxury expected by people that understand what that name means. That there's also more of this lifestyle component, and it's turned into a preferential luxury premium brand hotel. In a JW hotel, the experience for someone may be we try to create space where they have only enough time, well, whatever time that they want, so they can do whatever they think is necessary in their own life. So it's a seamless check-in. We time from the time they roll in the valet drive up to the guest room, 7 minutes. If it's 8 minutes, that's bad. 7 minutes, we track it. In a Renaissance hotel, the guest that stays in this, the U generation, plus 10 years, said, well, I want to end up experiencing some of my life in the hotel, so my experiential tract is really only an inch wide, but a mile long. With the JW, it's really an inch wide and about a mile deep. Just absolutely the opposite. Because the amount of time that they spend on the hotel really should be at a minimum. They come to us because the heat doesn't work over at Brand X. Because they can't get on the internet at the hotel down the street. Because the other hotel doesn't have good convenience. Because when they go down and complain at the desk, they get a wrath of grief back from the person at the desk. They don't stay with us for that reason. They stay because all the answers are going to be perfect every single time. With the Renaissance customer, they want to eat at the right place. They want to stay at a cool bar. They want the bartender to be able to tell them a story about the drink. They want to experience all life has to offer through the brand itself. So with us, it's just the opposite. The person that I get averages, thank you. The person I get averages is about 42 years old. That's my typical demographic customer. Their earning power sits at about $225,000 to $350,000 a year. They're executive vice president of their whatever organization they're in. They've arrived at the job. They're not climbing to the position. They're actually in the position that they've been clandestine to be in for their life. And their intent is they want to stay in a place that they don't have to be bothered by all the simple things that happen in a bad circumstance elsewhere. So they come to me. I'm the second highest occupied JW in North America. In our hotel here in New Orleans. I'm about 15 or 20 points higher than almost every other hotel in the city. But there's a reason, because we have high expectations for the staff and everybody participates in making sure that everyone's engaged.
Juan Raleigh was our guest last week. Everybody who missed last week, I have to tell you, probably missed one of the most powerful class sessions. It was amazing. Dealing with, well, every semester, we go through a range of speakers, and towards the end of the semester, which I'll ask this class also, we'll get to the point of, like, what does it kind of all mean? Because you have a general manager, you have the chief of police, you have maybe a person who runs the TV station, you might have an anchor, kind of how does it all come together? But dealing with, looking at the crime issue that happened in the quarter, right? You're in the CBD, not necessarily in the quarter. But there's always that tension of shit does happen, and you got to manage it. And that's one of the things that people don't get an opportunity to talk about enough in life, in work. And I happen to know one of your best assets is dealing with things do go wrong. And sometimes terrible things go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But take us through.
No,
I mean, really, come on.
I got a good one.
Okay, take us through.
Yeah, well, for the French Quarter, my hotel is not in the French Quarter, and I would never tout. I've got a perfect location. So I'm across the street from the French Quarter. I'm on Canal Street, which is kind of like Avenue of the Americas in New York. It's Michigan Avenue in Chicago. It's the coolest place if you're going to be in the South and owning a business, to be frank about it. Now, right now, there's a lot of T-shirt shops and a lot of five and dime type stores. That's all going to change. When you look at what's happened over the course of the last 100 years here in New Orleans, there's been more time where it's been an elegant state. People used to take the RTA downtown with the big hat and the seersucker suit, and they'd have lunch and they'd go shopping. That's coming again. It's coming again as the city continues to gentrify itself and really work from a positive perspective about what changes. So I'm very involved in urban planning, to be frank about it. And I sit on the New Orleans Tourism Marketing Corporation, which is a group that Mark Romig, that Irvin knows, runs for Mitch Landrew. Mitch
Yeah, they know. He was a guest here.
Mitch was?
No,
Romig? Oh yeah, he's
about
boy.
4 weeks ago.
He's a great guy, and really has made some political turns with that group to figure out how to spend $7 million in leisure advertising, really how to help the city. So stuff does happen, and I was very involved with NOTMC just about how they ended up adding copy, print, PR about the French Quarter shootings that had occurred. And I won't say all killings, but shootings that occurred because it affects my business. You know, we appealed to the Picayune. They have gone out of their way to put murder on the front page of the local magazine. And coming from Chicago, it was always in the Metro section. It was never the front page of the Tribune. So we talked to them about that. But that being said, 14 shootings in the French Quarter should have been on the front page. And you guys should be as concerned as I am. And you might not live down there, but man alive, that's our city. So really a scary scenario, and I think something that we all need to work on, which all the people Irvin knows, plus or minus a few I know, because everybody's trying to work on the same issues to really create this message about inspiration of New Orleans. We've had some great writers that have lived here, some incredible artists lived here, and world-renowned musicians that live in our city that continue to try to reconstruct what the city can be, and we know that it will be in the next 15 years. This was a really weird thing that just happened, and it's funny that you mentioned it. You hear about the Beefy Mac? You hear about Drew Saints not getting his Beefy Mac? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't trying to bring that.
No, that's a good one. It's actually got a good end. So, you know, there's a lot of firefights that happen in a hotel on a daily basis. I don't mean people setting fires, but you have to understand how to be patient and kind of deal through the issues. And the first thing I learned from my father was never let anybody see you sweat. So when there's an issue or a crisis, I'm more of a pillar of salt or a lighthouse than I am anything else, and I always kind of enjoy what that challenge looks like. Well, I had the Saints stay with me. Now, we don't brag about that on a regular basis, but I have more NFL teams stay in my hotel than any other hotel in the city when they come in to visit. Usually it's 5 to 7. I can't get all of them because we have weddings on some weekends, but I go to a travel managers conference where all the NFL travel managers show up, and I know all these guys by first name and by what beer they drink, and we try to make sure that they understand what our brand is all about. They do a rating on their own through the NFL, or organized by the NFL, and we hit top marks for a hotel that provides a kind of service that's secluded and secure. And the configuration of my hotel really sets the tone for what a football team would need. One big ballroom, a transom or a bridge that runs to smaller meeting rooms where they can do offense, defense breakouts, put the meals back into the big ballroom, but I can do it without them being plagued or bothered by any press or any people hanging around. And then when they come in, I never tell anybody. We just I had Donald Sutherland stay 3 weeks in the hotel. He was shooting a movie down here. Nobody knew he was our guest. He was staying in the presidential suite at about $3,000 a day, and the staff all knew. But you couldn't have pulled that out of my operator. You couldn't have had somebody at the desk. No bellman would have said anything. It's kind of rites of passage. We're proud of what we do, but we like to keep a nice personal, quiet air about how the hotel runs. So the Beefy Mac thing actually came up. The Saints. This is the first time they'd ever stayed with us. Stayed in my hotel, and we didn't serve Drew Brees his ground beef and macaroni and cheese. I don't know if you heard that in the paper, but it was unbelievable.
But I think you have to tell them what's behind this. He didn't just want that. This is what he gets.
He gets it all the time. So I'll walk you through kind of how the process went. So I was here that night. I actually was here in the nightclub. They checked in on a Saturday. And they send in all their specs, and not a line individual handles the event. The director of event management, who reports to me directly, he's probably the second or third most senior person in the hotel under me, does all the personal arrangements. He doesn't normally do that, but he does it for the football teams that we had. And then my director of operations was here. So we all three met the team when they came in, walked everybody in. Sean Payton didn't stay with us because he hurt his knee. He had to put pins in his knee, so he was staying at home. He came in late. He got here about 6:30. He showed up a little later than that, walked upstairs, toured him up to the ballroom to walk him into the team meetings. The director of events took over at the door of the banquet room, walked him through the buffet line, held his plate, sat him down in the room. Drew Brees came in, greeted Drew Brees as soon as he walked in, walked him through the buffet line, sat him down. Everything was great, smoothest check-in. The game was at 7:20 on a Sunday, so they checked out late, which meant I had 200 people waiting to get in their rooms, but wanted to do it to help the Saints. And then Monday, they have a press conference, and Coach Payton says that they stayed in my hotel, and they couldn't believe that they know what was on the specs, that the food that Drew Brees always has, because he's superstitious, wasn't on the menu in the ballroom, and how upset he was about it. Matter of fact, we didn't have his lasagna, and they sure don't want our business, and they're never going to stay in another JW hotel again. And I'm listening to the press conference going, what the? You gotta be kidding me, because I was here. Nobody said anything. So first thing, I get in at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday. I call the PR company that represents us in New York City, Harrison Schriftman, and call our corporate PR agency. My owners called from California. There'd been a tweet that we had blown the meal for the team. There was something on Facebook. It ended up on one of the players' pages. Can't believe we didn't serve the coach and the quarterback the items that they typically. Oh my God! There must have been 60 references in media and in press, and it was coming as fast.
I found out from Sonny.
See, you.
I
think you're Minnesota.
I didn't tweet it though.
He didn't tweet it. He just emailed me and said, "Check this out."
Yeah, right. Yeah, take a look at Fox. Fox 8 covered it. WWL covered it. They covered the press conference, and then what had happened at the press conference was because we won like 68-4 or something. I don't remember what the game was, but we crushed the opposition. And they said, you know, what happened? Did you change your diet or what was the deal? They said, well, no, actually, let me tell you the story. And Peyton said, I walked in and I looked around, and then Drew came in and he said, I think I got a problem. He's cutting up his hamburger because we had hamburger and spaghetti at Sarah. He goes, I don't know why they missed your deal. And so that's it. I'm never staying in another JW hotel. Well, that hit the press like holy mackerel. So now, in our maybe no big deal, 48 hours, that thing would have a life of its own. We'd light the match, and it would just fizzle out on just lighting a match on something that would be attached to a piece of dynamite. Didn't blow up. We looked at all the paperwork. What we put on the menu was exactly what they requested. I won't tell you the guy's name. You can find it on the internet. It was in their training department who had sent the menu in. He'd been walked through the line the first time. The coach never said anything when we were in the room. And then it ended up being actually 36 hours of apologies. We contacted the PR department at the Saints headquarters, and they sent out a note that said, food had nothing to do with how well that we won or lost, but the two items that didn't get put on the menu, it was so-and-so, and they mentioned the guy in their organization that actually had blown the contract. And they put his name in there. I'll say Bob Smith just for the sake of putting the name in there. Bob Smith, don't blame the JW. And then Fox 8 comes out. They do 15 minutes about brand integrity, about what a great hotel it is. We called the hotel that they were staying at in St. Louis, which was a competitor, to make sure they knew that we had the beefy mac and the lasagna on their menu. You know what? It wasn't on the menu. And it's because the specs that came from Saints' training office didn't have the specs on the menu. So they profusely apologized. They apologized when they were in St. Louis. They apologized to us. And I'd blown my gourd. You know, all it would have done was create a defensive relationship, and my intent would be lemonade out of lemons. You know, how do I take something that's bad from a pressure cooker standpoint and make it good? And that happens all the time. Well, was that too lengthy? I'm sorry. Anyway, beefy mac.
Now that you mentioned that, you know, last week I was in a hotel and they didn't have mine. I want my spaghettis.
I've heard about your business. The hotel up in Minnesota, man. They pull it off the menu, they put it back out when you show up.
No.
I follow the
That's
detail.
You're trying to give me a hard time. Okay. This is what we do. It gets dirty. The last thing before I let the students ask you some questions. Once you tell them about the assets that the JW here does offer, but you have questions on it?
Oh, sure, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I I have a really great restaurant. It's not a. Do I have any cooks in here? Anybody really like cooking or watch Cooking Network? Anything? Maybe, yeah. Okay, so great. So you guys will be coming. Anyway, thank you. It's not a Paul Bocuse restaurant or a Roger Verger restaurant, but it's a very fine restaurant. It's a Don Shula restaurant, and Shula is actually how he started the brand. Was his son's the president of the organization. He was an NFL coach too, and they've got about 40 restaurants right now. But the intent is that everything's perfect. The average check in there for dinner runs $52. That's food only. So if you want to go in and bring a girlfriend and it's your night out, it's $200, $300, $400 for 2 people. White tablecloth restaurant. Really fits good with my brand because that's my customer. The Black American Express card comes out and goes. Nobody pays any attention to the cost. It's all very high cost items, but it's better beef than Prime. And that sits right on Canal Street. We've got the Urban Mayfield iClub, which is our most recent addition, and our intent was, Urban and I have been talking about this for about 3 years. Being an ex-trumpet player from Chicago, I seeked out the 2 greatest trumpet players in town and befriended Urban early on, just before Gustav. During Gustav, I had, they evacuated almost 1 million people in the city within 24 hours, and I had a hotel full of, I had ABC Nightly News, Charles Gibson. I had the board of directors from Whitney Bank, which is right behind my hotel, and I had Urban and his family. And from that point on, we've been chums, and I'm a big fan of his music and what he's been able to build over at the Royal Sonesta. So we've been talking about a deal a long time, and with my customer, who has limited amount of personal time, that I would be able to provide an authentic music experience that shows somebody something about New Orleans that they could find or have to get in a cab to go do, but find it in the confines of my backyard. It is an amazing, amazing piece of magic. It's the only nightclub in a live music nightclub in Marriott hotels in North America. So we're really proud and pleased to have that representation. Urban and I are 50-50 partners on the deal. And it's working beautifully. If you haven't been by to see, please come by. I'll put you on the list. There's a modest cover, but we wouldn't charge you if I know you're coming ahead of time. But Amanda Shaw's in there every Thursday. Wednesdays is a singer-songwriter named Mia Borders, who's spectacular, building up her own career here in town. Friday, Wolfman Washington plays. I think he's with the Meters. Yeah, this guy's played with everybody. He's a spectacular show. And then Saturday, at least 3 out of the 4 Saturday nights a month, Urban's in there with one of his bands. So it's really a great venue. It was a restaurant that had been built by Le Meridian, which had owned the hotel. Hotel's about 35 years old, and it was named after the chairman of the board who passed away before they opened the property and been a restaurant. And we just kind of put money back into it to renovate it, and he saw the space, fell in love with it, and I loved the idea, so we started the business. So we're really happy about that. I've got a pool. The suites in the hotel, I brought my iPad. If anybody's interested, you're most welcome to look, but I have some photos in there that'll show you what the property looks like. But it's premium. It's not your typical hotel. It's a luxurious stay. When people come, they know what to expect. And the JW moniker really drives what that preferential treatment is that they expect. I get more customers that stay that are members of our rewards program, which there's 40 million people that are part of Marriott Rewards. And if you stay in a Marriott hotel, you can sign up for what the rewards points look like. But I get more in my hotel than any other hotel. We've got a 1,200 room property across the street, and I do about 3 times as many of those. We consider them our preferred premier customers because they're loyal to Marriott. But they stay with me more than they stay with anybody else, only because of the service. And then concierge services. The other great thing about the jazz club is it's the only jazz club in the city that's got valet parking. So you can pull up, you can go in from the entrance on the street, come right in the hotel, get out of your car. You don't have to walk on the street. You don't have to go down to Bourbon. You can kind of come and go into the club and really have a good Louisiana experience.
There's a spa?
Yeah, and there's Serenity Spa. I had this, as I said, kind of, when I took this job, I had a great job in Chicago. It was an area GM, and they had moved, following the storm, they had moved many of the executives out of our hotels that were suffering from post-traumatic shock, like being in Vietnam, quite frankly. Because it was just a horrendous time with devastatingly bad news one day to the next day, and many of you are from New Orleans, so and it's just what happens with your family. You not only lose your house, but you can well, lose your loved ones, right? Like in your own family. So the first 7 months while I volunteered for the job, was like being on a mission because I knew I could help and I really wanted to live in New Orleans. And I'd say probably the first 7 months I was living in the hotel every day. I'd eat the cafeteria. The worst story, I sat with 3 housekeepers and one of them was working at the time, and for lunch. And I asked the 2 girls, what happened? She said, well, they just, she was trapped on a bridge over a street, and the bridge turned into a rush of water that was 13 feet deep, and she was up with some members from her neighborhood, and underneath the bridge she watched her daughter and her granddaughter float on a queen mattress, never to be found again, and they just found the body. Like, oh my God, how does that happen? So I had the guy that ran public health for the city of New Orleans out to do 3 days worth of traumatic shock for the staff when I first got here, because there was one story like that after the next. Just every community was really hit hard with that kind of effort. So that's part of this whole benevolence about really trying to understand and make a difference where you live. It's important to be attached to what people do.
All right. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
And a little word association.
What animal am I? I hope you're not asking me that.
Well, I mean, I know you're going to be good at it. Just say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
You good?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Drew Brees.
Oh, hero.
Sean Payton.
Coach of the hero.
The Saints.
I think Super Bowl champs.
Mac and cheese. Sheridan.
I was really on there.
Sheridan.
Boy, loving competitor.
Hyatt.
Boy, the newest kid on the block.
Hilton.
Good location.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Actually, my favorite word is can't, because I'm not a can't person. So when somebody says, no, we can't do that, I just love to hear that.
Well, this is an interesting next question. What is your least favorite word?
No.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I'd say passion for being alive.
What turns you off?
People that just put up with the day-to-day.
What is your favorite curse word?
I can't use the F one, but I'd say probably shit. I hear that one a bunch.
What sound or noise do you love?
What sound or noise do I love? I love the buzz of a mouthpiece in my ear first thing in the morning.
In your ear, that's a...
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you hate?
What sound or noise do I hate? Actually, loving sounds. I think thunders are really good, and I love the sound of rain. But that's a bit of a challenge here for people. What sounds do I hate? Because I love the sound of busy city. I love the sound of ocean. I love the sound of chirping birds. I don't think there are any sounds that I don't like. Maybe when my car brakes, I hate that sound.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I would always contend 2 things, actually, if I'll say when I die versus if I die. But when I die, that I'd come back as I'm hoping to have 2 careers, because I want to be a percussionist and a baker.
In one career? You want to play congas and bake a cake?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What profession would you like not to do?
Being a garbage man. There's so many worse jobs to have than what I do, and there's a lot of shit I clean up. Proverbially, but also the real thing. But yeah, being a garbage man, I don't know how people do that. That's really tough work.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Bring your trumpet.
I don't know if you'll be here. Bring it with you.
Yeah, I'll bring it anyway.
Questions for Ted Selogie? Yes, ma'am.
You were stressing customer service so much. I know you wouldn't do anything illegal or obviously unethical, but have you ever had to toe the line? to do something?
No, that's a really good question because often there would always be a concern. One of the reasons why I came down here just because there was this horrendous criminal element. So that I actually got a call from Bill Marriott's office. Would you be interested in coming down here? Because my sense of ethics is at an extraordinarily high level, and that's not to say that I'm a rat about all things that happen to all people. If I have a customer that ends up requesting something that may be illicit or illegal, we prepare an option for them to reconsider their question. Worst case would be throw them out. I'm in that kind of a brand, in that kind of a hotel. When I moved into a couple markets, when I took the job in Cleveland, I sat down in the bar for a few weeks during happy hour to try to see what goes on. It's a very busy lobby lounge, and I got approached by at least half a dozen hookers who don't come into the hotel anymore. And it's not the kind of thing that one would want hanging around. But I can give you one good story about where that line might be. You all know who Michael Jordan is?
Yeah.
The world's greatest basketball player. So come on, you got it. You know who Sean Payton is? Anyway, Jordan had come into a hotel that I was in for an NBA playoff series game, and he stayed in the hotel for about 4 days. And I got a call from the F&B manager that had said that they're not returning any of their room service items. You know, usually it's you finish when you order and then you roll the cart out in the hallway, or you call somebody and they come up and take the garbage out of your room. And when the housekeeper went up to the room during the day while he was out, and I love Michael Jordan, so I'm going to tell this story anyway. She opened up the closet, and he was, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was somebody else. I'll always say it's probably somebody else. Was taking the trays and throwing them heave-ho into the closet. So I had broken dishes and old hamburgers and all sorts of stuff. So I called him and said, you know, you got a problem. I can't have you do. I don't care how famous you are. I can't have you throwing my utensils around like they're garbage. And at first I thought he'd be mad, and instead he apologized and he paid $3,500 to have that fixed. Well, that's not the end of the story. He checked out, and the same guy that had said we got a problem with the food and beverage piece comes down to my office and he is white as a sheet. And I go, oh my gosh, what happened now? And he said, well, Mr. Jordan left a briefcase in his room, and we don't know what to do with it. I said, well, we'll get the briefcase and bring it down. So we open the briefcase, and there's $30,000 in a loaded revolver. So now, maybe or maybe not that was his. You know, he'd had some people had accused him of having a gambling problem. You know, he was also on the White Sox for a few years instead of the NBA. So we could have turned it over to the police. Instead, it came out of his guest room, and I called him because now I had a cell phone because of this other situation. I said, I've got something that I think you may have left behind, and I'd like you to either come by. I'd like you to come by and get it personally from me, or I'm going to have to turn it into the police. He says, I'll be right over. He comes over. I hand him the briefcase. He goes on. That's the end of the story. You're the first folks I've ever told that story to. So that might be a line thing. You know, whose money was it? I don't know. His gun, his money. That might be something that I would consider in the gray. But the black and white issues regarding, you know, if it's right or if it's wrong, if it's illicit or if it's illegal, if you run a good hotel, you just don't put up with that. There's other places that would, but in a Marriott brand, because it's also a reflection on me as a leader. If I tolerate that, then everybody in the hotel thinks that's okay to run girls up to the rooms and all sorts of stuff. And that's not good sound business, Jeff. As I said, I'm the busiest JW in North America, so there's a reason why people keep coming over. That's a good question.
Next question.
Yes.
You said you have a lot of good requests. Like, I never requested anything other than room service. People actually request abnormal things.
Yeah. They'll ask for things that you think you can't get. Like they might ask for their favorite fried oyster dish from Commander's. So I'll figure out how to get it. Troy McPhail and I are buddies. The chef over there, I know T. Brennan on first name basis. You know, we'll get requests for just unusual things, unusual trips that they want to see, if they want to get access to somebody, if they want to get into the home, if they want to meet the mayor. I'm trying to think of something that would be kind of out of the norm, but I've got 2 shifts of concierge that work full-time that have been with me for about 5 years that are experts at getting what those little things are, And it permeates not just for New Orleans, it permeates throughout the state. I get requests to get into the Capitol in an evening. I haven't gotten anybody to see the governor late night yet. I haven't had that request. But we get all sorts of weird requests. Occasionally we'll get somebody that has a sleeping problem and they'll want aluminum foil to put it over their windows in their room. We let them do it. Where they can't sleep because the sun comes up and they've got insomnia. It's stuff like that, though, more than unusual. Weird things that you go, oh my God, I can't believe somebody asked for that. Yes?
Is there a certain amount of time that you could work someone? Because you say long hours. And I worked at Powder Line for 5 years. And I worked from like 10 in the morning till 4 in the morning the next day. And then I would get a phone call the next 10 in the morning, 6 hours later, I wanted to come back in. That's like,
Are you looking for grounds to sleep?
22 hours shift. No, I'm not looking for grounds to sleep. I was just wondering if there's like rules, because it's like, Powder Line is kind of like a mom and pop one place.
Right.
And, it's just like a corporation. So I was just wondering if you guys had like a cutoff where you had to say you have to go home.
That's a great question. And I could say, and I'm going to tell you what the norm is, and then I can tell you where the rule would be broken. But again, it's about the leadership part. As a big entity as we are, because we've got, we generate about $45 billion a year in revenues for Marriott. So often we'll end up being a target in the event that there is some impropriety based on staff or based on the condition with a customer or based on an employer's situation, etc. A typical day would run 8 to 10 hours. It might run 8 to 12 hours. We really try to not have people there more than 50 as a break point. Managers are consigned to work 50-hour work week. I'm a nut. And I'm not the only nut in the building, but I don't drive. You got to be a nut to be there morning, noon, and night, because a couple of things happen. If you're past that amount of time on your waking moments, you're not sharp. You start making decisions that are in the deliberate gray versus really knowing what to do because you're tired. And we want people to be sharp on the job. It's much like running a relay race. Now, you can't go home if your replacement doesn't show up, but with a couple hundred people working in the building, I usually have a way to figure out who goes in where. As an example, I have someone that works overnight in audit. They also work the front desk. They can't go until the morning person comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning. If that person's late, I'll have somebody from security, loss prevention, come over, fill an hour at the desk. They've all been trained how to check customers in. So to work the kind of hours you're talking about would really be abnormal. Now, that being said, so the normal shift to be 8 to 10 hours. That being said, over Gustav, when Irvin was in the hotel, I was up 5 days straight. And then I had 6 people that stayed behind with me that worked around the clock, because I had the entrance.
You were open during Gustav?
Pardon me?
You were open during Gustav?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's not true, but you're right. That's what everybody thought. I had the ABC Nightly News. I had Irvin and his family. I had 500 rooms of energy emergency workers that were sleeping in my hotel. So we were handing out sheets at the front desk. They were changing their own rooms, and then I go up and do a room call with 5 people every day. It was unbelievable. And then the amount of promotion information that came from corporate headquarters, from the city, us, the Marriott across the street. I think there are 3 hotels that were open. Everybody else closed. So, but that was, I put in 110 hours in a week. It was pretty interesting. I was cooking in the morning, then cleaning rooms in the afternoon, and then working the buffet dinner at night just to make sure that everybody could at least eat while they were staying with us. But that's part of the fun. No, but it was cool. It was a cool. Seeing the city completely deserted as that storm rolled in, that was really interesting. And the French Quarter never got any water. Even over Katrina, we never took any water into the property. We're at a different elevation on Canal Street. So that wouldn't happen in the Marriott.